Welcome to the TravelPulse podcast. Here's your host, Mark Murphy.
Hey, it's Mark Murphy, and yes, I'm back with the TravelPulse podcast. Psyched to be here this week and talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart to kick things off, and that is travel agents. What a consumer who's listening to this podcast may not realize is that travel agents sell the vast majority of cruises, international airline tickets to places like Mexico, resort stays in the Caribbean, and so on and so forth. And there's a really simple reason why they do it and are so prolific at it. They eat, sleep, and drink travel. They're passionate about it. And the traveler can't really distinguish most of the time between product A, product B, product C, product D times 1,000, just in the case of Cancun and the Riviera Maya region in Mexico, because there are 1,000 lodging options just in that area. And you could go to a travel supplier website like an Apple Vacations or Delta Vacations or United Vacations or Southwest Vacations and on and on and on. And you just see right there, there's 4, 5, 6, there's dozens of options to book a package. And you can certainly, you go to cheapcaribbean.com and book it yourself. You can do all these things. But are you going to pick, number one, the right resort? Are you going to get the best price? Are you going to get the value-added options that you may not be aware of? And on and on and on. Also, if you go directly to a travel supplier and the product you are thinking about, they're probably not the best choice. Are they ever going to send you to another travel supplier? And the answer is, hell no. They're going to take the booking. And whether you ever wake up and realize that the choice that was put before you and that you made wasn't the best one, we will never know. You may never know whether or not you could have had a better experience at a better price point with more value-added options had you booked something else because you got third-party advice. You'll never know that. Or it'll be a complete frickin' disaster. You'll show up and you'll be kicking yourself because the only person you can call and bitch about is yourself. So you might go to the telephone in the hotel room and dial your cell and then answer it. Yeah, you probably won't do that. But anyway, you get my drift. So that's why I'm starting this episode with some insights into travel agents. So just a couple of quick things that are really interesting, I think, about the travel agent market today. Number one, despite decades and decades and decades of travel agents existing, it seems like this industry can't get out of its own way to educate the consumer space as to what a travel agent does, how they save them money, and so on and so forth. It boggles my mind. It really boggles my mind. And I mentioned this in an earlier podcast, but since everybody has their own agenda, even down to the travel agency groups, nobody can get together and actually make a move in that direction. In fact, I will go on the record without being an arrogant ass and say I'm basically the only person that's been out there broad-based engaging millions of consumers about the value of travel agents. I don't see anybody else really doing it. And if I'm mistaken, please let me know. But repeatedly on television interviews, radio interviews, in print, wherever it makes sense, I am talking about why you should think about using a travel agent. Now, we get the normal things like, oh, aren't they out of business? The answer, no. They cost more money. Yeah, that's no. They actually save you money because they save you time and they literally get you a better deal most of the time than you could ever get yourself. Case in point, if I book through an American Express agent with my Platinum card in the Fine Hotels and Resorts program, and a lot of these groups have them, then I get amenities at that hotel that I would not get, and it can add up to hundreds of dollars on a stay had I booked it on Expedia, for instance. Just a fact. So with that said, there's so many misperceptions out there. Part of what I'm talking about today is what the reality is versus those misperceptions. So, case in point, did you know that travel agents doubled their booking volume in the last decade? Literally from around $80 billion in travel sales to $160 billion this year. That's with a B, folks, $160 billion. They sell the vast majority of cruises for a reason. Cruises are a pain in the ass to book on your own. What deck are you going to be on? Inside, outside, balcony, non-balcony, excursions, shore excursions, do them through the cruise line, do them through, let's say, short trips. Our friend Barry there, do it through Barry's company. Maybe you save money as a result of that, okay? Because you don't need to go through the cruise line. But there are caveats with that. And I'm not going to get into all of those things, but you get the drift. And if you look at the consumer media, maybe some of you are starting to catch on, because I will just rattle off a few headlines in the last ballpark, 24 months or so. Travel and leisure. Millennials are relying on travel agents in record numbers. That was about 15 months ago. Fortune magazine. Travelers are embracing human travel agents again. Lonely Planet. Style Bible Vogue declares travel agents are now travel designers and back in fashion. Business Insider. Travel agents are becoming cool again. USA Today. Why travelers are returning to travel agents. You get the drift, right? They're returning because they've been burned. They've gotten bad advice. They went to a single supplier. They had a limited view of what to do. They did it. They came back and they kicked themselves because their buddy said, oh yeah, well, I talked to Mary Jo and she actually put me on this and we got all this great stuff. And then you're like, oh, I can't get that time back. Oh, I can't get that money back, and on and on and on. So again, as an informed traveler, you want a travel agent to help you out in any, non-basic booking. And even if it is a basic booking, you could do it through their website. If they have a hotel booking engine or a cruise booking engine and you want to try to do it yourself, you can do it there. Then you have a local connection, someone who can wade through things when you get stuck, and somebody who can say, yeah, that's not a good fit. You probably want to do this. These are things that travelers need to consider. But here's a huge challenge for travelers. The latest research, which is from a group called the Travel Institute, says that 70% of all travel agents work from home. Now that creates a very big challenge for a traveler to find a qualified travel agent. How do you go about finding one short of asking your friend who may not know one and you're left in the dark? That is a big challenge. Also, 61% of all travel agents, they're independent entrepreneurs. They're independent contractors, or ICs. Again, they may be associated with a group, but they're 5 levels removed from that particular group, meaning they're on their own, they're working the market in their local market, and if you don't have somebody out there that's out there saying that they're a travel agent and talking about what they do and sharing their reviews and having a great website with a lot of great content, you're probably going to have a tough time discovering them. And that's unfortunate, but I think it's a challenge for the travel industry and travel agents in particular to recognize that they need to have a web presence, that they need to have professional reviews, on their site where customers review them so you have confidence in booking with them. I'll give you an example. I listened to a prior podcast. I broke my freaking ass, or literally my femur. So I started on rehab, and I have no idea down in Florida who's a good physical therapist. So I relied on, number one, making sure it was in my insurance network. Number two, looking at individual reviews. And you can go on Yelp and other sites, Google reviews, and see at least to some extent what the general feedback is. And then, unfortunately for me, I've had 5 knee surgeries and other related basketball injuries because I played in college, that I have really good experience in physical therapy. So even if the reviews weren't that great, I could go kind of get my marching orders, and then I can go at home because I'm disciplined and do it. But I find it really interesting that one of my salespeople recently was talking to a supplier. So if you're a travel agent, you know what I'm talking about, right? Because most of you work from home. If you are a traveler, you may not know this, but obviously you're learning something today. If you are a travel supplier, I got to tell you, your entire approach to engaging the distribution channel that's most important to you today is upside down, because your business model is geared towards calling on agency locations. And if I go back 20 years, there were 38,000 of them. And you knew where they were, and you knew what they sold based on their ARC data, the airline reporting data, and other factors. Today, it's 14,000. And now, 70% of agents work from home. But ironically, some in the industry don't even understand this. One of my salespeople came back to me and said, yeah, well, I was talking about the numbers, and And the travel supplier, the marketing person says, I don't believe those numbers. And I'm going, well, what do you mean they don't believe it? Like, have they been under a rock? Hello, if you go back to 2005 in January, Credit Suisse First Boston came out with a report, a white paper, and it was, a report. It's called Home Booking, a white paper on the emergence of the home-based agency channel. They pegged it in 2005, January, when it published, at 15 to 20% of the market, and they projected that it was going to grow over 300% in the years to come. Now, they talked about the challenges for the suppliers in terms of engaging these folks back then, right? Way, way back then, which is remarkable because they saw it from a publicly traded company standpoint, like the cruise lines, that they would have challenges doing that. Now, fast forward, and you get to, I think Focusrite did their study. I think it came out around 2012, and they estimated the market at about 50% home-based. And then recently, the Travel Institute came out and said it's 70%. So my response was, well, when you said that's not our number, that's the Travel Institute, and Focusrite would confirm that as well, and so on and so forth. Well, I don't believe that. Well, then your head's in the sand. You're sticking your head in the sand, and you probably shouldn't have a job in marketing if you don't believe that the trade distribution channel you rely on is highly fragmented. It just is. And so, again, there's an education process for you as a traveler. There's also an education process for this industry, to be frank, because if I'm a travel supplier and I'm running sales today, I'm at a loss right now as to how I'm going to engage these individuals, how I'm going to compensate my BDMs, because my compensation model, my sales call model, everything is geared around a physical location, which has no bearing on the fact that Mary in Des Moines is booking $1 million in travel from home, but she happens to be booking it through a host in Florida. Good luck making that connection. And by the way, if you think that host agency is going to, quote, influence and drive the agent to book a specific way, there's a new MRI report that just came out that says they're not going to book 67% of the time with a, quote, preferred vendor because you have a relationship. They're going to book what is most important for their customer. And the other 33% I chalk up to basically folks who are big-time newbies in the industry who are being told something and haven't figured out yet that, no, it's not about that. It's about coming up with the best solution for their customer. So little food for thought there, folks. But if you're a traveler, you aren't the only ones who are literally at a loss to some of the things that are going on in this space. And our job is to help you, but our job is also to make sure the industry is up to speed on what's really taking place so they don't get blindsided at some key point, which is coming. It's coming. Mark my prediction. There's going to be a holy shit moment in about 12 to 18 months when these supplier sales staffs wake up and go, holy shit, how am I going to engage this marketplace? How am I going to reach these people? Where are they? Who are they? What are they selling? Okay, well, you heard it here. Trust me, that's what's coming down. And that's why we have a magazine called Agent at Home. We have an online community called the Agent at Home Community, which I'm going to get into at the end of this podcast. But we do these things because we understand you have to have a one-to-one relationship. Very important. And in this case, with the distributor, and then for the home-based agent, one-to-one relationships with the traveler to consummate the deal and make sure the customer's getting exactly what they want. But in the meantime, we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the news stories this week. And there are a few of them, but one of the ones that really stood out to me, and it wasn't really a news story, it was a slideshow that you can find on TravelPulse.com, but you can also find over on MSN.com because we're the largest travel news provider for MSN. So we don't care if you read it at TravelPulse or at MSN.com or any of the other syndication partners we have. It's great content, but interesting enough, the slideshow I'm referring to has to do with air travel. 25 things you probably didn't know about airplanes and air travel is the headline. And I'll just sum up a few of them for you because I think they're alarming and interesting at the same time. The one that's alarming, I think, for everyone is the one that says odds are your airplane will be hit by lightning. There is a very good chance that when you are flying, and I've been on a plane that's been struck by lightning, that's going to happen. But the good news is you don't have to worry about it because it's almost impossible unless there's a huge, huge confluence of events for an airplane to ever have an issue in terms of staying in the air. I know a lot of us are terrified of flying. I'm one that's not. I fly every week basically, but it's the kind of thing where people get terrified by it. If they hit turbulence, oh my God, I'm going to die. And they start, cracking out the rosary beads and whatnot. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but no need. Odds are you are going to be totally fine. You are a hell of a lot safer in the air, but unfortunately, people don't have control when they're in the air. There's a guy in the front of the plane, and that lack of control makes us nervous. But odds are your plane's going to get hit by lightning. Here's another interesting thing. The pilot and the co-pilot, did you know that the pilot and co-pilot are required to eat separate and different meals just in case one batch of the meals goes bad? The fish or chicken, remember airplane? Hey, Billy, did you ever see a grown man naked? Spend a night in a Turkish prison? Leslie Nielsen in Airplane classic. Remember the fish or the chicken? I think it was fish or chicken. I think the people that ate the fish were the ones that were dropping dead on the plane. So yeah, I always choose the chicken, even though everyone in my household's a vegan. But with that said, I didn't know this. So for somebody who's been in the business for 29 years, I had no idea that they made them eat separate meals. Thought that was interesting. Now the question is, does the captain get first choice because he's the captain? Because of seniority and rank? Or do they go back and forth? You know how like they do it in the plane where they start from the back or they start from the front, and then you're always the guy, going one way you're in the front, going the other way you're in the back, and you get no choices because you're on the opposite end each time. How much does that freaking suck? But yeah, it does. It just sucks. So one of the things you do, little tip, order your freaking meal in advance. And on most airline websites with 24 hours notice, you can order whatever is available. And then that way you're running blocker on them. So if you really want to eat that airline food because it's so damn delicious, at least you can eat something that you want as opposed to the slop that nobody else wanted and you were the last guy standing. So that's a little airline tip for you. Two other key things you want to know about flying. Number one, drink, and drink again. I am not talking about bourbon, folks. I am not talking about my favorite go-to happy hour drink. Okay, right now it's the Woodford Reserve Double Oak, okay? Full disclosure. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the fact that you are going to lose 8 ounces of fluids in your body, right? For every 1 hour you are in the air. And people don't realize that has a compounding effect when you marry alcohol with it, which dehydrates you even further. So you want to make sure you are constantly drinking literally a minimum of 8 ounces of water to maintain the water balance in your body as you fly for every single hour. So every hour, consume 8 ounces of water. That should be the formula. And if you're drinking, keep it in check because guess what? You don't want to end up being one of those dudes with the zip ties. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be that guy. And the other thing you want to think about is for those of you who are doom and gloomers and are terrified of flying and wonder, where should I sit on the plane so I can be safest? Well, I got good news for you. That middle seat in the back of the plane where you're stuffed in like a damn sardine, yeah. That is your safest seat. So FAA crash data said that the middle seat in the back third of the plane had a 28% fatality rate, which is the lowest among all areas of the aircraft. An aisle seat in the middle third of the plane, which is where I sit near the damn exit row. What's up with this? I always want an aisle seat and I want to be on an exit row. Most importantly, I want to be in that second exit row. So I'm in the first exit row, assuming there are 2 on the plane, and most equipment there are 2. Then if you're in the first one, you can't recline. Second one, I can recline. Got it? So that's why I sit there. But little did I know that it has the highest damn fatality rate. And that fatality rate is 44%. So you got to know where to sit. So if you want to survive, you think your plane's going to go down, take the middle seat in the back. You don't even have to pay the upcharge for it. You don't have to pay for Economy Plus or anything else. For us frequent flyers who get to pick and choose where we sit without the premium on our preferred airlines, et cetera, we're the ones that are in the death seats. I'm just saying. So if we think that the plane's going down, damn, I should have taken the middle seat. What was I thinking? Last and certainly not least on the airline side, when you were sitting in Atlanta and there's a snowstorm in Chicago, don't be surprised if somehow your flight gets delayed or canceled altogether. And you go, how can this be? It's beautiful. It's 70 degrees and sunny out and I'm flying to Florida and it's beautiful there. There's nothing going on here. Well, little did you know that your plane was coming from Chicago and it got stuck there. Or it was on its way to Chicago or was supposed to go to Chicago and they canceled the Phoenix-Chicago leg. So that plane is getting rerouted doing something else. The airlines are great at basically rerouting and trying to limit the cancellations and therefore what we call the domino effect. But a lot of times planes don't make it to the destination. And even though the destination's untouched by any kind of weather issue, et cetera, you're getting booted. And that's where having a travel agent or status with the airline really helps because they get you automatically rebooked on the next available flight, and you do get priority. So just another airline tip for you. And if you want to fly, it is safe to do that on planes. However, it is not exactly safe to be jumping on the damn hang glider like that tourist from Florida did in Switzerland. Did you guys see that video? So the guy is getting ready to take off on a tandem flight on a hang glider. However, the pilot of the damn hang glider in Switzerland, you guys are supposed to be pretty damn efficient in Switzerland. This shocks me. He didn't strap the harness to the hang glider. So what does that mean? The guy starts to take off and realizes, holy shit, I'm hanging on for dear life off a damn mountain. If he falls, he dies. And very quickly, the pilot recognized this. But what was he going to do? Fly into a tree on the side of a mountain or into a house? No, he had to get to some space down below. And luckily, it all turned out well. The guy who was hanging on for dear life ended up breaking his wrist, needed surgery, got pins and plates. Dude, I can relate. I just had that done to my femur. And ended up tearing his bicep muscle because his left arm was hanging on for dear life as he was groping and grabbing like the strap of the pilot. It's amazing the guy actually didn't fall. Most people would have fallen. So I give the guy a huge amount of credit. But man, that pilot totally effed up. Totally effed up. That should never have freaking happened. Just so you know. Never should have happened. And thank God, all's well that sort of ends well. The guy was injured, but it's better than dying. And he's had some fun. Another thing that's happened is the Amtrak Acela train. I don't know if you heard about that, but it was stuck for 5 hours with no power. I don't know what the hell's going on with the infrastructure in New York City. I've got a place there, but for the love of God, de Blasio, you idiots running the city. I mean, between the subway delays, railroad infrastructure, railroad tunnels. I mean, it has been a freaking mess. I know what a pain in the ass it is to drive into New York, but let me tell you, I prefer to drive because I control my own destiny for the most part, other than like an accident or, road closures or whatever. But it's like Russian roulette on the damn trains these days. So I can't tell you the last time I took an Amtrak train and it was on time getting me down to like Washington or up to New York. It seems like it's been late consistently for me. And at the same time, on this train, people don't realize when you don't have power, okay, you don't have air conditioning. All right, well, so maybe it just gets a little stuffy in there because it's cool outside right now. So that's a relief. It's not the middle of summer. But the toilets don't flush when you don't have power. So what they did was they got makeshift toilets and cardboard boxes for people. So I guess, what did you do? Did you go into the bathroom and take care of your business in a box? The Acela train has become a third world country, for God's sakes. That's what happened in New York with Amtrak recently. And that just blows my mind. How can you have no power for 5 freaking hours? Well, I can't answer that, but someone needs to answer that, because that's just ludicrous. And with that said, I think we'll call it the Amtrak poop power outage. What do you think? Yeah, drive your car. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to drive my car, and maybe I'll carpool with some people. But even if I drive a big gas guzzling SUV, which I don't, but if I did, I'd be very content with that. Unfortunately, my SUV does not have a toilet, so maybe I take an RV next time. I don't know. I'm getting out of bounds here. But shifting gears back to the travel agent side, if you're a travel agent listening, we've launched the Agent at Home community. You can get on it at community.agentathome.com. And what's awesome, and it's just the critical mass, is we have thousands of agents now active on this platform. We're adding probably 100 to 200 a day. So the numbers are just going through the roof, but they're sharing some great ideas. And one of the questions we asked agents is, how do they inspire clients to travel? So I'm going to read off a few of the answers to wrap up this portion and this week's podcast, if you would. And they all come from the Agent at Home community. And there's just a handful of them that I cherry-picked, but here goes. So Steve McLeod said, I like to tell clients a story about a particular destination. It can be a story that I've read about, one that I've experienced, or one that others have encountered. And he finds that a personal touch can often make clients more inclined to experience the adventure. I couldn't agree more with Stephen. When I tell people about places I've gone, they really are just entranced. They just think about, wow, that's just amazing, and how can I experience that? So I think that's awesome. It's also great to start with a question, and Erica Whitmore does that, and she says, I always start off with a simple question, and this is a great question. If you could go and do whatever you want in terms of a dream world, where your idea of relaxation could be met with no matter the cost, and I'm paraphrasing here, what would they tell you? And then she says, if I can make that a reality for you without breaking your pockets, for instance, affordable payment plans, et cetera, what would you think? And she basically said that after she goes through this process, many of them are ready to book that awesome adventure because you've just gotten them motivated to do it, and you've shown them a path to making it happen. This is what travel agents do for you, travelers. And the other one that was addressed was presenting a plan that, again, won't abruptly put a dent in their financial plans, but allow them to get that experience and over time graduate to bigger vacations, more luxurious experiences, and so on. And that was from Deidre Macklin. So I think it's really interesting that when you pose this question, people come up with these answers that truly tell us what it is that motivates them from a travel standpoint. Now, Bruce Fisher, he said, just generally speaking, I ask lots of questions. I continue to aid them in increasing their level of passion and emotions towards their travel and destinations and activities. So that is amazing. That is just, that is just the right approach. If I ask you the right questions, I get you to think, I get you to respond, and you can learn a lot from those answers, right? By asking the right questions. And the clients are also going to gain great, valuable inspiration from their very own responses. And those are just some of the things we've gotten through the community just in the last couple of days. So I think that's fantastic. And I'll leave you with this thought. It's about controlling your own destiny. There's no reason why a traveler can't travel. There's no reason why somebody who wants to choose a career selling travel can't be super successful. We see it, but it's the 80-20 rule or 90-10 rule. It's the people that always find the glass half full versus, the glass half empty, and so on and so forth. But I always get this question, and I find it really interesting. I get it on Instagram and Facebook, on my fan page, and all that other stuff. and by the way, it's at Murphy Travels on all those platforms, Twitter, et cetera. I always get people saying, man, you've got the greatest job. How did you get into it? This and that. And they think it's like, well, I just decided to start traveling. I was going to be a travel guy. And the answer couldn't be further from the truth. If you want the real boring part, I started selling advertising for a travel magazine. And then I became addicted to learning about the travel industry. And I got to experience things, and I've never looked back. And then I decided to start my own company at a time when everyone else was sticking their head in the sand. That was 6 months after 9/11. And risked everything by moving my family and selling my house and investing in this company, and did it because I felt that we could address what the industry needed. And we did it successfully, and we've had our ups and downs, but we've been growing, leaps and bounds from the day we started. And when I decide that I want to go do video and we need a host, I can pick myself. I did a casting call, and I said, hey, who should we put in this role? And it's like, I nominate myself. And I'm being a little facetious, but I literally had somebody on the hook to do this because we were doing a daily show, and this goes back a number of years. And I wasn't going to be around for a couple of weeks, and she was going to start. And then she's like, well, since you're not going to be around, maybe I'll just wait till you are back. And then I got delayed again on another trip. So she's like, well, maybe I'll just delay it again. And then finally I'm like, well, if she's so willing to delay everything, she's obviously not that interested or not that passionate. And at the end of the day, it's my company. I'm going to be the face. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. You've already shown your true colors and you're out. And that was that. So I took control of my own destiny. That's why I'm talking to you through the TravelPulse podcast, the platform I own. And I'm also open to learning new things all the time, because what's nice about travel is there's always a new destination, or there's always a new thing happening in terms of the industry, or an existing place that you've been to has just reinvented itself for the 8th time, Vegas, Mexico, you name it. And there's always something new to discover, even for places you've already been. And that, to me, folks, is why I love travel and why I love this business. Now, I went a little bit longer today, so hopefully you hung in there and enjoyed the entire podcast. And I appreciate you listening to me today, and look forward to bringing on some guests in the weeks ahead, which is my plan to provide some insights and some entertaining parallels to what we're doing here, and to see what they're doing in their respective areas. And I'm going to get a cruise guy I think you guys are going to like, because back in August, I did an interview with him for my podcast, and then I proceeded to corrupt the SD card, and his name is Mike Julius at Carnival, and he has no idea that the freaking thing never ran. And he is not a small dude. He is like a monster, this guy. And so I got to make sure that I have my act together, so when I actually do it officially now from the studio, that I am teed up, because this guy could snap me like a twig. I know he's not going to do that. He's Mike. He's a big dude, but what is he? He's just a big bear. He would never do that. But I'm not taking any chances. So Mike, if you're listening, I'm going to be reaching out to you. Until next time, thanks for joining me.